I knew something was wrong the moment I saw her smile at him. It wasn't just a polite smile. It wasn't one of those quick, meaningless grins you toss to a friend of a friend. No. The smile was soft, slow, lingering. Her eyes stayed on him too long. Her lips curled just a little too much. It felt like someone had punched me right in the gut, but I didn't say a word. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking, that I was insecure. But deep down, my instincts were screaming. Her name was Amanda. We'd been together for 4 years. Moved in together after 2. Talked about marriage. Kids. A future. His name was Jake. My best friend since college. We'd been through everything together, late-night study sessions, drunken breakups, road trips across the country. He knew everything about me. Every fear, every dream, every dark secret. I trusted him with my life. And they betrayed me. It didn't happen all at once. That's what hurts the most. It wasn't some random night of drunken stupidity. It was slow. Calculated. Hidden in plain sight. The first time I noticed something was off, it was just a look. A glance across the room during a house party. I saw Amanda laughing at one of Jake's jokes, nothing unusual there, but then she touched his arm. Just for a second. Just long enough to make me wonder. Then came the text messages. At first, they were innocent. She'd show me her phone sometimes when they texted group plans, jokes, memes. But then she stopped showing me. Started turning her phone face down. Started taking it with her to the bathroom. Started sleeping with it under her pillow. Jake started coming over more often too. Even when I wasn't home. I'd come back from work and find him sitting on our couch, a beer in his hand, chatting with her like they'd been best friends for years. Amanda would act like it was nothing. He was just waiting for you, she'd say with a smile. We were talking about your birthday plans. But I could feel it. Something dark was growing between them. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I tried to ignore it. Tried to push it down. I even talked to Jake about it once, casually, over beers. Asked him if everything was cool between him and Amanda. He laughed it off, slapped me on the back, and said, "Dude, you're being weird. She's like a sister to me." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But lies have a way of rotting everything they touch. And soon, the truth started seeping through the cracks. It was a Saturday night when the illusion finally started to crumble. Amanda told me she was heading out with her coworkers for a girls' night. Normally, I wouldn't have questioned it, she'd done it a dozen times before. But something about the way she said it felt off. Her voice was too high, too cheerful, like she was performing a script. And when she kissed me goodbye, her lips barely touched mine. Cold. Mechanical. As if it was a chore she needed to check off before leaving. I waited 10 minutes after she left. Then I called her. No answer. I texted her. Delivered, but no reply. Another 10 minutes passed. Then 30. Then an hour. My chest started to tighten. My thoughts spun in circles. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened her laptop. She'd forgotten to log out of her messaging app. And there it was. A conversation with Jake. I didn't want to believe what I was reading. At first, I thought maybe I was misinterpreting it, jokes between friends, maybe inside references I wasn't privy to. But then I saw it, "Can't wait to see you tonight, heart," from her. And his reply, "Same here, babe. I've missed you." Babe. The word echoed in my skull like a bullet. There were other messages too. Dozens of them. Weeks worth. Late-night confessions. Secret meetups. Plans made when I was at work or out with family. They spoke in code sometimes, but not enough to hide their meaning. She called him things she used to call me. He told her things I thought only I knew. I sat there in silence for what felt like hours, my hands shaking on the keyboard, my breath caught somewhere between rage and despair. My best friend. My girlfriend. The 2 people I trusted most in the world. The 2 people I would have taken a bullet for had put a knife right between my ribs. And they didn't even have the decency to hide it well. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every memory, every lie. I thought about the dinners we'd all shared, the inside jokes, the trips, the nights we all spent watching movies. I thought about Jake standing beside me at my father's funeral, his hand on my shoulder, telling me he had my back. I thought about Amanda holding me when I lost my job, whispering that she believed in me. All of it poisoned. All of it fake. By morning, I wasn't angry. I was empty. But I knew one thing for certain, I had to confront them. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want yelling or throwing things or some dramatic soap opera moment. I wanted the truth. I wanted to look both of them in the eyes and hear it from their mouths. No more secrets. No more lies. So I waited. I waited for Amanda to come back home from her so-called girls' night. I didn't text her. Didn't call. I just sat on the couch in the dark, the only light in the room coming from the street lamps outside, casting long, ghostly shadows across the hardwood floor. Every passing car made my heart race. Every sound from the hallway made my fists clench. When she finally walked through the door, she flinched. She hadn't expected me to be there. "Hey, you're up," she said, her voice faltering, purse still slung over her shoulder. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Really looked. Her makeup was smudged and she smelled like cologne. Not hers. Not mine. His. She stood frozen for a moment, then slowly walked in and put her purse down. "Is everything okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Everything's fine. I just wanted to ask you something." She hesitated. "Sure. What is it?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "How long have you been sleeping with Jake?" Her eyes widened for a split second, just long enough. Then the lies began to tumble out. "What? Are you serious? Why would you even say that?" She laughed, a high, nervous sound that cracked in the middle. "Jake? That's insane. Where's this even coming from?" I said nothing. Just stood up, walked to the table, and handed her the printed screenshots of their messages. I'd emailed them to myself and printed them at a 24-hour FedEx store earlier that morning. Her face went pale. She looked down at the pages, flipping through them, and I watched the exact moment her last defense crumbled. Her shoulders slumped. Her hands began to shake. She didn't speak. "Tell me the truth," I said again, quieter this time. She sat down on the edge of the couch and covered her face with her hands. Her voice came out muffled and trembling. "It started a few months ago. I don't even know how it happened. It just did." I stood there, arms crossed, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. "Why him? Why my best friend?" She looked up, tears running down her face, mascara streaking her cheeks. "I don't know. It wasn't planned. We were drinking, one night you were working late, and it just happened. And then it kept happening." My stomach turned. "And you never thought to stop?" "Never thought maybe this would destroy me." "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. I laughed bitterly. "You didn't mean to hurt me? You did this over and over again. With my best friend. In my home. I was lonely," she said. "You were distant. After you lost your job, you changed. You stopped looking at me the same way. So you replaced me with the closest thing you could find." I snapped. "You didn't just cheat. You chose the one person who knew exactly how much this would wreck me." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. And that's when I realized Jake needed to hear this too. I didn't call Jake right away. I wanted to cool down, to think, to avoid doing something I'd regret. But there was no way I could move forward without confronting him. He wasn't just some stranger who'd slept with my girlfriend, he was my brother in everything but blood. And he knew that. He used that trust, that history, that bond we'd built over years and twisted it into a weapon. So the next day, after a night of no sleep and a morning spent staring at the walls like they might whisper some kind of wisdom, I texted him. "You free to talk? Come by." Short. Calm. Deceptively calm. He responded within seconds. "Yeah man, everything okay?" I didn't answer. When he showed up an hour later, he looked casual, relaxed. Like nothing was wrong. Like he hadn't detonated my life from the inside. "Hey, what's up?" he asked, stepping inside with a grin that made my skin crawl. I closed the door behind him and motioned for him to sit. He did, looking around. "Where's Amanda?" I didn't sit. I stayed standing, arms crossed. "Out." "Cool, cool." He glanced at me again, sensing something. "Everything all right, bro? You look kinda off." "I know," I said. 2 words. Simple. Cold. His face changed instantly. The grin faded. His shoulders tensed. "Know what?" I reached into the drawer and pulled out the same stack of messages I'd shown Amanda. Dropped them on the coffee table between us. He didn't touch them. Didn't have to. He knew. His silence said it all. I leaned in. "You slept with my girlfriend." Repeatedly. "You came into my house. Ate my food. Smiled in my face. All while stabbing me in the back." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "Don't say anything. Just don't. I don't want your excuses. I don't want some story about being drunk or lonely or confused. I want to know one thing, why?" Jake rubbed his face like he could wipe the guilt away. "I don't know, man. I wish I had a better answer. It just happened. We didn't plan it. It was a mistake." "No," I snapped. "A mistake is forgetting a birthday. A mistake is getting too drunk at a party. This was a choice. Over and over again. You made a choice to betray me, to lie. And you didn't even stop." He looked up, his eyes glassy. "I messed up. I know I did. I hate myself for it. You should, I said flatly. Because I trusted you more than anyone. There was a long silence, the kind that feels like it could crack the air open. And then, without a word, I opened the door. Get out. He didn't argue, didn't cry. He just stood up slowly and walked out, the door closing behind him with a quiet finality that felt louder than any scream. I stood there for a long time after that, alone, shaking, broken, but for the first time in days, I felt a tiny sliver of clarity. The worst part was over, or so I thought. The silence that followed was unbearable. A thick, heavy kind of silence that clung to the walls and pressed against my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. Amanda stayed at a friend's place after our confrontation. At least that's what she said. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care. The apartment felt hollow without her, but not in the way I thought it would. It wasn't that I missed her warmth, her laughter, or her touch. I missed the illusion, the comfort of believing I had something real, that I was loved, respected, safe. That illusion had been ripped away, and in its place was this raw, gnawing emptiness. I walked past her toothbrush in the bathroom, her slippers by the bed, the wine glass she'd left in the sink like it was some kind of grave marker for the relationship we used to have. I should have thrown everything out, burned it even, but I didn't. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I threw myself into work. Anything to keep my mind off it. But even there, I could feel the damage. I was shorter with coworkers, distracted in meetings, constantly on edge. People noticed. They asked if I was okay. I lied. I said I was tired, that I was just dealing with some stuff. No one knew the truth. How could they? I wasn't ready to share it. I wasn't even ready to admit it out loud without breaking down. And then, just as I was starting to believe I could find some sort of routine again, Amanda showed up, unannounced. It was a Thursday evening just after 8. I heard the knock on the door and felt my heart drop into my stomach. I knew it was her. I don't know how, I just did. I hesitated before opening it. For a second, I even considered pretending I wasn't home. But curiosity, or maybe masochism, got the better of me. She looked awful. Eyes red, face pale, hands shaking as she held her phone like it was a shield. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and let her in. She moved slowly, like she was stepping into sacred ground she no longer had the right to tread. We sat at opposite ends of the couch. The space between us felt like miles. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said after a long pause, "trying to figure out why I did what I did. Why I destroyed something so good." I stared at her, expressionless. "And," she swallowed hard, "I think I was scared. Scared of how real things were with you. Scared of settling down, of being seen completely. With Jake, it was easy. Shallow. There was no risk. No depth. It made me feel wanted without having to be vulnerable." I laughed bitterly. "So you chose comfort over commitment. Pleasure over pain. Lies over love." "I didn't plan to fall for him," she said quickly. "But I didn't stop it either. And I hate myself for that." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "Do you love him?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "I don't know," she whispered. "I thought I did. But now, I don't think so." I nodded slowly. "And what do you want from me now?" She looked down. "I want to fix things. I want another chance." That was the moment. The line in the sand. The chance to rewind, to rebuild, to forgive. But I didn't want any of it. I looked at her. Really looked. This woman I had once imagined building a life with. The woman I thought I'd grow old beside. Holding hands on front porches and swapping stories with grandchildren. And all I saw now was a stranger. Someone I used to know. Someone who used to make me feel like I mattered. But not anymore. Her face was the same, but everything behind it was different. Hollowed out. Complicated. Tainted by every message. Every lie. Every stolen touch with the man who had once stood beside me like a brother. I felt no fire, no fury. Just a deep, cold stillness. "You want to fix things?" I repeated, not quite as a question but more like tasting the words. She nodded. Her eyes begged. Her hands were clenched in her lap like she was holding something broken together. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. You don't fix betrayal with therapy sessions and apologies, Amanda. You don't unbreak what you shattered on purpose. Her lip trembled. I didn't mean to fall apart. I didn't mean to fall away from you. But you did, I said, my voice firmer now. And I'm not here to help you find your way back. I'm not a checkpoint for your healing. I'm a person you destroyed. The tears finally came. Quiet, steady. She didn't sob or wail. She just sat there, letting the tears slip down her cheeks, one after another, like they might cleanse her of what she'd done. But they didn't touch me. Not the way they once would have. There was no ache in my chest. No urge to reach out and hold her. Just a final, solid sense of closure. Like the door had finally shut and I was on the right side of it. I loved you, I said, almost to myself. More than I knew I could love anyone. And now I can't even look at you without seeing the worst parts of both of us. She nodded through her tears. I deserve that. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. I hope you figure out who you are. I hope you learned something from this. But you and me? We're done. She stood too, shaky, slow, like someone walking away from a grave. She paused at the threshold, looked back one last time, as if searching for some final sign of hope, something redeemable, something she could salvage. There was nothing left to give. When the door closed behind her, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there for a long while, breathing in the silence she left behind. And for the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like a prison. It felt like peace. The days that followed were quiet. Not the oppressive, suffocating quiet of betrayal, but a different kind. A cleansing kind. The kind that settles after a storm has blown through and left everything broken, but at least honest. I started sleeping again, though the bed felt impossibly big. I cooked my own meals, left dishes in the sink without guilt, walked around shirtless, blasted music at 2 a.m. if I felt like it. My space became mine again, not a shared territory laced with hidden meanings and secret intentions. For the first time in a long while, I began to feel what I hadn't realized I'd lost, control over my own life. Jake didn't reach out. I didn't expect him to. In fact, I almost respected the silence. At least he had enough shame to disappear. But word got around. Mutual friends, those awkward bridges that remain long after the war, started whispering. Some took sides. Some tried to stay neutral. A few even reached out to me, saying things like, "Man, I had no idea," or "That's so messed up, I'm sorry." I appreciated the concern, but it didn't change anything. The truth was, this wasn't just a breakup. It was an unraveling of an entire foundation. Amanda hadn't just left me for someone else, she'd left me for the one person she knew I couldn't fight without losing a part of myself. I saw them once. Together. About 3 weeks after everything fell apart. It was at a small local bar I used to love. I walked in with a coworker, just trying to grab a beer, unwind a little, and there they were. Sitting close. Not touching, but close enough. They froze when they saw me. Amanda looked down. Jake looked like he'd swallowed glass. I didn't say a word. Didn't stop walking. Just turned around and left. I felt a rush of something cold and hot all at once, like my skin couldn't decide whether to burn or freeze. But I didn't rage. I didn't break. I just left. And that simple act, walking away without a word, felt more powerful than any punch I could have thrown. That night, I drove aimlessly for hours. Through old neighborhoods. Past familiar coffee shops and street corners that used to mean something. I ended up by the lake, parked under the stars, letting the sound of water soothe the riot inside my chest. And I thought about everything, every moment, every lie, every kiss that wasn't mine. And I realized something important. I hadn't lost them. They had lost me. Because I loved fully. I gave freely. I trusted completely. And while they played games and snuck around in the dark, I stood in the light. That wasn't weakness. That was strength. The pain hadn't made me smaller. It was shaping me into something stronger. Healing didn't happen all at once. It wasn't some glorious, cinematic moment of epiphany where the clouds parted and suddenly I was fine. No, it was slow. Messy. Full of setbacks. Some mornings I woke up and felt okay, lighter, clearer. Other days I rolled over expecting to find Amanda there, only to be met with the cold reminder of absence. Sometimes I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos, torturing myself with memories of smiles I once believed were real. I'd read old texts, listen to old voicemails, searching for signs I had missed. But over time, the ache dulled. The weight lifted, little by little. Not because I forgot, but because I started choosing myself over the past. I started journaling again. Something I hadn't done since college. It helped in ways I didn't expect, getting the words out, putting shape to the chaos. I wrote down everything. The betrayal. The anger. The moments that made me question my worth. But I also wrote about the rediscovery. The things I liked that Amanda never cared for: jazz music, long solo hikes, old Western movies. I filled my weekends with small acts of rebellion against the version of me I had become in that relationship. I reached out to old friends, booked a solo trip to Colorado, hiked alone, watched the sunrise from a mountaintop, tears freezing on my cheeks, and felt something crack open inside me. Not pain, not regret, but gratitude. Because now I knew what I deserved. It wasn't perfection. It wasn't some fantasy version of love. It was honesty. It was loyalty. It was someone who wouldn't flinch at the first sign of my imperfection and run to the nearest escape. Someone who wouldn't whisper affection in my ear while lying to my face. Someone who wouldn't trade history and depth for thrill and secrecy. And as painful as it was to admit, Amanda was not that person. And neither was Jake. I ran into Amanda again a few months later. Randomly. Grocery store. The kind of accidental encounter that feels too perfectly cruel to be coincidence. She was alone. No makeup. Sweatpants. Hair pulled back. Still beautiful in a way, but dulled like the shine had worn off. She saw me before I saw her. I watched her freeze, then force a smile. "Hey," she said softly. I nodded. "Hey." We stood there for a second, the space between us thick with everything unsaid. She looked down at her cart, then back at me. "You look good." "Thanks," I said. "You too." Silence. "I think about you a lot," she added. "About us." I gave a small nod. "Yeah. Me too. Sometimes." She hesitated, eyes searching mine. "Do you hate me?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at her, not the woman who cheated or lied or broke me. Just a human being. Flawed. Hurting. Lost. And I realized I didn't hate her. I didn't even resent her anymore. "I don't," I said. "I did. But not anymore." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. "I'm sorry. I really am." "I know," I replied. "I hope you find peace." And then I walked away. Not with bitterness. Not with anger. But with freedom. There's something strange about moving on. People talk about it like it's a finish line you eventually cross, a point where the pain just stops and everything is okay again. But that's not how it works. Not really. Moving on is less like crossing a line and more like learning to live with a scar. You get used to the tightness in your chest when certain songs come on. You stop flinching at memories. The pain fades into something manageable, something you carry without crumbling. It becomes a part of you, not a definition, but a thread woven into your story. I started dating again. Slowly. Cautiously. I was honest with people about what I'd been through, about what I was looking for, and what I wouldn't tolerate again. I wasn't bitter, but I was wiser. More aware. No longer willing to ignore the small things, the little cracks that grow into canyons if left unchecked. One woman I dated for a while told me she admired how open I was about my past. "Most guys try to act like they've never been hurt," she said. "But you don't hide it. You carry it like a badge." That stuck with me. Because the truth is, I had been hurt. Deeply. And I wasn't ashamed of it. That pain didn't make me weak, it made me real. It made me resilient. Eventually, I stopped checking Amanda's social media. I stopped wondering whether she and Jake were still together, still playing house in the wreckage they created. It didn't matter anymore. Whether they burned out or stayed together forever, it had nothing to do with me. Their story ended the moment they chose each other over honesty. And mine? Mine was still being written. One day, a friend sent me a message. Apparently, Jake had moved out of state. New job. New city. Clean slate. I didn't respond. I didn't ask for more. The man I once trusted with everything was now just another face in my distant memories. I hoped for his sake he was different. That he'd learned something. That the guilt kept him up at night, not because I wanted revenge, but because some betrayals should haunt you. They should linger. They should remind you what you're capable of when you choose selfishness over decency. Amanda, from what I gathered through whispers and second-hand mentions, was still local. Still figuring herself out. Dating around. Nothing serious. I wondered if she ever truly reflected on what she lost. Not me specifically. But the version of herself that could have built something beautiful instead of sabotaging it out of fear and weakness. But that too wasn't mine to carry. I had let go. Not in a loud, triumphant way, but in the quiet, private way that matters most. The kind that frees you. Looking back now, I can't say I'm grateful for what happened. That would be a lie. I wouldn't wish that kind of betrayal on anyone, not even my worst enemy. But I am grateful for what came after. For the clarity. For the strength I never knew I had. For the way pain stripped me down to my core and forced me to rebuild, piece by piece, not into who I used to be, but into someone better. Someone sharper. wiser, more honest with others, but more importantly with myself. I stopped romanticizing people who didn't deserve it. I stopped seeing potential where there was only poison. I learned to trust slowly, to value consistency over charm, depth over drama. I found a peace in solitude I never knew was possible. I no longer fear being alone. I welcomed it. Because alone doesn't mean empty, it means whole. It means your happiness isn't tied to someone else's loyalty. It means your worth doesn't shrink when someone walks away. And once you understand that, really understand it, you become untouchable. People say time heals all wounds. That's not true. Time gives you distance. But healing? That's a choice. A process. A brutal, beautiful journey you walk through fire to earn. And I earned it. Through every sleepless night. Through every bitter thought. Through every step I took away from Amanda and Jake and the life I thought I was building. I earned the right to feel okay again. To laugh without guilt. To love again carefully but without walls built so high no one could reach me. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about them. Not with longing, not with hate, just with a kind of detached curiosity. Two people who taught me more about myself through their absence than they ever could have in their presence. They showed me the limits of forgiveness, the cost of misplaced trust, and the value of walking away. I don't need closure from them. I gave it to myself. And if there's one thing I want anyone who hears this to take away, it's this. You don't break when someone betrays you. You break when you stay where you're not respected. When you shrink yourself to hold together something already cracked. But once you leave, once you choose yourself over their comfort, you don't just heal. You rise. Stronger. Smarter. Unshakable. And no one can ever take that from you again.